Tool number 4.
Good morning, Faye.
Good morning. Defining the child. How parents define the child, the world, themselves. It's, as we've discovered, it's a huge topic. Just as I was writing the outline for this, it became overwhelming thinking about all of these pieces of this.
All the things that we define for our children.
Yes. Intentionally or unintentionally, that's the problem.
Intentionally or unintentionally, we will define.
Yeah.
Now, talk a little bit about how we define.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we make these definitions for our children? Because, like you were hinting at there, we define who the child is.
Mm-hmm.
We define what a caregiver or a trustworthy adult is.
Right.
Okay? And we define the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
And we create, their children aren't born with those definitions. These are learned definitions. So we teach that, parents teach that primarily through 3 methods, and we might repeat this over and over and over again in this video. We do it with words. We narrate our lives and their lives. We do it with our nonverbal communication. Studies have shown that up to 95% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
Here again, it's the difference between, now, honey, don't do that, and don't do that. Same essentially verbal message, but a completely different message non-verbally. And of course, we do it because children are always watching us, so we do it by them watching our actions. What do we do? How do we make our decisions in the real world? And these things all become definitive for the child.
I'm thinking about when does this start and how many over the course of time, our kids were born ages ago, and they have these talk to your baby kind of machines and stuff, and as soon as a baby is born, this whole narration definition thing starts right away.
Arguably it could start pre-verbally too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with those things of talk to your baby machines kind of things.
Okay.
Those early on, and you see the classic videos and TV of somebody patting the baby or the mommy's belly and talking to the baby. So there's these, we know to talk to babies, and we're always defining that. The child's world and the child themselves. Oh, aren't you cute? Or, oh, you're wet. Mommy needs to change you. Daddy will be right here to play with you.
Well, through the 2 baby talk, we learned that even just helping the child deal with fear teaches them their value.
Yeah.
Where their position teaches them whether or not they can trust the caregiver. Teaches them whether or not the world they're born into is a safe place or an unsafe place.
And this can totally be done without words. Just scooping up a child and holding them close is an action that conveys so much meaning.
So this learning, when we define for a child who they are, when we define for a child what kind of world they were born into, or when we define for a child what a caregiver should look like. Because remember, children are hardwired to look to a caregiver. Actually, the caregiver. They're born with this. So this is knowledge that has to be learned. This becomes the basis for later things like values. Can you talk a little bit about how we define values for a child?
So when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, all right, so if I knew we were having company in the evening, it was important to me, it was one of my values, that we at least get the public areas of the house cleaned up enough. The back porch cleaned off, the living room decent, the kitchen decent. It didn't have to be perfect, but it was a value for me, was let's at least make the place presentable, as my mom would say. So that was a value.
So can I count on the fact that your actions taught the children to value that value?
My actions, and there were times that my words also reinforced that.
Exactly. And later, even if they decide to not utilize this value system, it doesn't change the fact that it's in there.
Yeah, I on that point, it's like we have those other things. Oh, if my grandmother was only here, she would say this. or if my sister was here, she would say that. Because we know what their values are, And if ours are different, then we have that comparison contrast going on in our head.
Ethics. These definitions that we put into and onto our children, they become the basis for later ethical decisions. What is actually good and or bad?
Right. Well, like cheating, going to school, truancy, going to work every day, just the basic things in life. With us having the tree farm, there were business ethics we put in place for the kids that they would, how to treat customers or those kind of pieces.
If we sit at the table, for instance, and denigrate our coworkers,
yes,
from the previous day's work, we're going to teach our children to not value their coworkers.
Right. Or if we talk about our friends who just left, and there's always that statement about having the preacher for dinner. After you go to church, you sit down and have dinner and criticize the sermon. That's what you just taught the kids to do. It's not just a debate and looking at particulars. It's really those attacks that we're doing. But
what about regulation, self-regulation?
Oh, that is so important early on. In particular, you think about toddlers and how they're learning to eat and sleep, and if we don't teach them good self-regulation ourselves and help them instill those, we're going to get some really dysregulated people in this world.
In all of these, I think of it as the word too, T-O-O.
Oh, yeah.
Is it too much?
Yeah.
Do we tell children, I'm feeling really tired right now, and then say, I'm going to need to take a break for a minute or two, which gives an action to take care of the feeling? Or do we say, man, I'm really tired right now, so you need to stop bugging me so I can get this work done? It just defines how much is too tired.
That and how to solve the issues. Just like I'm tired, I'm going to take a break, or I'm hungry but I don't really have time to cook, so I'm going to at least make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We're teaching the kids, if you become dysregulated, here's ways to work on it.
I'm going to say this again. We teach these things through 3 mediums. 1, we do it with our words. 2, we do it with our nonverbals, the emotional load that we deliver our actions and verbiage with. And 3, we deliver it with our actions, how we actually decide what to do. Right. In particular, I think skills. These definitions become the value or the basis of how they value their own skills. I think to myself, of the child who just is very boy who's very physical, he just really loves to catch and throw and catch and throw. And I've seen this in toddlers. Some just love that. They'll sit there for hours, just roll a ball back and forth. Right. Some lose attention to it right away. Right. But if you have a child with that kind of joy, and yet me as a parent, if I say, when they come to me and say, Dad, can we throw? Can we throw a ball? And I say, nah, we got other things to do right now. Let's go do this. I'm going to teach the child to not value that decision. Right. Or not value that skill. And later when I, would hope that they would get involved in baseball or some other sport, I don't even realize often that I've already devalued those skills. Yeah.
I told them it's not important.
So why should they? So why should they try that?
Yeah. Yeah. Or then you have that other parent that goes overboard on, the idea they're going to become their son or daughter's going to become a great sports something or other.
Yeah.
And
seen that quite a bit.
Push.
Yeah. The performance of that sport, the skills of that sport become so important that the child actually decides whether they're good or bad based on how well they can perform in this sport in their parents' eyes.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, at this point, some people might say to us, but you can't tell a kid how to feel, right?
No.
Or to think.
No. But we can tell them what we think they're feeling, or what we think they're thinking, or what we think they're believing.
Did you just say we can?
We can do that.
Because we teach that you're going to do that.
You're going to, no matter what. Just like a parent does an infant, that we still need to do that. In particular, for the kids with early trauma, those disrupted early years, there's a good chance that they were never taught those things, had those experiences by their birth parent, where they were tired and fussy, and mom says, "Oh, sweetie, you're tired, you're fussy, I'm going to put you to bed, you need a good nap." So the baby links in its head, "I'm tired, I'm fussy, I need a nap. I will feel better when I get up.
It's okay, here's a solution."
That's right. And you're mad because you broke your toy. Of course you're sad you don't have that toy anymore. We put emotional labels on our children.
Everything.
Yeah.
We are emotional creatures. We place emotional tags on everything.
Yes.
And our children are constantly watching those tags and recording them for themselves.
Yeah, and this is all for another video, but the fact that our children with trauma, they have these behaviors that come from their emotional world.
Absolutely.
And if we aren't teaching the kids, these are your emotions, and this is why you're having those emotions, and this is what you tend to do when you have those emotions, we're gonna not help this child heal.
I would like to ignore it, but the fact is that even at my age right now, I have behaviors that stem from my emotional world on occasion, and they can get me in trouble if I'm not aware of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fact.
So. We teach them to evaluate the emotions that they have, and we teach them to evaluate thoughts, right? Is a thought good or is a thought bad? Is it valid? Is it invalid?
Yeah, and this is all about an internal awareness. Our kids are so disconnected from their bodies, from any of the neurological processes. We have to help them put those awareness in place, and then they can have even some control.
I think of the child that shares, comes home and shares an experience. I wanted to hit Jimmy today. How do we respond to that as a parent?
So the classic is, well, you're not allowed to hit people. Stop that. I don't want to hear you going to school hitting people. Just no more.
And of course, not only does that teach no hitting, it also teaches you're bad for having that thought.
That's
You
right.
have the nonverbal there.
And we did, and there may be that classic parent says, just ignore the kid or do whatever, trying to solve the problem instead of saying to their child, and that's really tough. I'm wondering what's going on that caused you to get so mad at your friend.
Giving them the words to think about that thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole parent defined, as I said at the beginning, it just becomes a really big principle. And, but they're always in my head, what you say about the principles, they're going to be carried out one way or the other. Yeah. Like it or not, intentional or not, you're going to carry them out. So if we're not helping our children have these internal awarenesses by defining them for the kids, then they're just going to be pretty much running amok.
Here again, I'm going to slip it in again. We teach this in 3 ways. What comes out of our mouth, how it comes out of our mouth, our emotional load, and our actions. They're always watching us creating these definitions for themselves. In particular, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the beliefs.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because back to our kids with trauma, they have an internal belief that they're not valuable, they're unworthy, and that they're going to be acting from it's the negative internal working model. We talk about that all the time, but we have to name that for the kids. Your behavior's telling me that right now you're not feeling like you're worth anything. I just heard you say, just send me back. That's telling me you're not feeling good.
Can't fix it if you don't label it, right?
That's right. And so we have to be able to help our kids see those beliefs in action, and then give them new experiences to counter what's inside. So it is so important to be defining when those beliefs erupt. Or there's a possibility sometimes when the kids are trusting us, which is counter to the negative internal working model, we define it. You trusted me. That means there's some progress here. So
So now you're back to the three core beliefs that are triggered by the two baby talk, or illuminated by the two baby talk. And what you're talking about is, I'm valuable. Caregivers are valuable, and the world is a safe place. That's what we want them to internalize, but it might not actually be what we're teaching.
And that's, when the kids bring these things into us, it is imperative again that the parents are defining the world in healthy ways for the kids.
Even thoughts. I'm sorry, even sensations.
Oh, yeah.
Even sensations are taught.
Yeah.
The child that grows up in Alaska is going to have a radically different perception of how much too cold is to the child that's brought up in Florida.
Right.
And it's not just the geographical area and the weather that they experience. It's how the parents define the experiences.
Which takes me back to our kids with trauma and the addict parent who says, oh, you're not hungry, here, eat this bag of chips. Because that parent is really unable to meet the kids' physical needs at that moment. So that child learned, okay, I'm not really hungry, I'll just eat a bag of chips. And then when that child moves into a foster or adoptive home and he says, oh, I'm not hungry, I'll just have some chips. Like, what?
So I want to close out again with this statement that we are going to define our children's world. We're going to define our children, and we're going to define for them what a caregiver, what a trustworthy adult looks like. And that is going to happen no matter what. We're going to teach them one thing or we're going to teach them another. I think I'd like to end this with a caution, because parents who don't do this intentionally are going to abdicate one of their parental roles to other defining sources, like peers as they reach a certain age, or media, sadly today, at any age.
Right.
Children are going to define themselves. That's part of childhood. That's part of growing. That's part of maturation. Either we do it intentionally, or we don't do it intentionally, and we let some other force create that definition.
We just have to watch our words, our actions, and our nonverbals all the time. Just the least slip, like, oh, he's always in trouble, is like, man, we just blew it.
That person.
Yeah.
This is a very, very powerful principle. If it might even be able to say that if you get nothing else from the principles, please get this one.
Yes.
You will define your child.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Thank you.